Hydrotherapy, Theory and Practice, Part 30. An important note, as you navigate any health challenge, it's always recommended that you partner with a medical practitioner that shares your philosophy of the care of the human body in disease and in health. The information shared in this presentation is meant to educate and improve your wellness toolbox and aid in returning to health if sick and maintaining good health when well. It should not be construed as medical advice, simply as tools that have been used successfully by others in similar situations. As always, investigate and verify any treatment, protocol, or procedure for yourself, not blindly accepting anything without due diligence. In January of 1903, in the Newark Advocate, Thomas Edison was quoted as saying, "The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will instruct his patient in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease." It was a very forward-looking statement in 1903. I don't know that there are many, if any, doctors practicing this form of medicine. It's very forward-looking and not necessarily the scope of practice at this point. In 1885, even before that, there was a famous quote from Testimonies for the Church that there are many ways of practicing the healing art, but there is only one way that heaven approves. God's remedies are the simple agencies of nature that will not tax or debilitate the system through their powerful properties. Pure air and water, cleanliness, a proper diet, purity of life, and a firm trust in God are remedies for the want of which thousands are dying. Yet these remedies are going out of date because their skillful use requires work that the people do not appreciate. Fresh air, exercise, pure water, and clean, sweet premises are within the reach of all, with but little expense, but drugs are expensive, both in the outlay of means, that is money, and the effect produced upon the system. In 3 John 1 verse 2 is stated, "Beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health just as your soul prospers." We need to take care of our soul and our walk with Christ so that our bodies can be the best that they can be, so that as our soul prospers, our health can prosper. And we are told in Corinthians that our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit. In Romans 12:1 and 2, it says, "I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice," that would be within the holy temple, "holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God." In the ministry of healing, it was stated that the knowledge that man is to be a temple of God, a habitation for the revealing of his glory, should be the highest incentive to the care and development of our physical powers. Fearfully and wonderfully made has the Creator wrought in the human frame, and he bids us make it our study, understand its needs, and act our part in preserving it from harm and defilement. Today, we're going to focus on handheld sprays, a form of hydrotherapy using a spray from a water jet or a flexible hose to the specific areas that need treatment. Often this is accomplished by the use of a helper, someone assisting. The person should be ambulatory, although they may be found in positions of sitting at various times. One of the supplies that's needed is a stool. And then 3 different types of spray nozzles that you can use throughout the course of the treatment. A fan or a linear flat pattern, you can see in the lower picture with the orange nozzle. We have a spray, which is kind of more like a shower, traditional shower spat pattern, a more lightly falling. And then the jet or solid stream, no fan, with a high impact component. You can even do this with a thumb over the end of a hose like in the top picture, but it's much less precise in that regard as compared to one of the other nozzle varieties. The fan spray is the one with the lightest skin impact, so very delicate. Especially the one on the bottom there is kind of a conical output, but it's more like a mist. It's best where used, or you don't want a tonic type of effect, so in areas with nerve pain and skin inflammation, that's going to be a good hose spray to use. A spray nozzle with low pressure can also approximate the fan as noted in the bottom picture. The spray, so when using hard-hitting water, you don't want percussion. If you don't want that, then use the spray. So it's more like a shower head. This is a small type of a watering dram here, for example. It can be hot or cold, so you can use whatever water temperature you need, just varying the hookup on the hose to a faucet with a hot or cold application. You may even use 2 hoses. Less to very minimal pressure is involved here. Then the jet spray nozzle. This is often a combination. You can see that the Dram variety here has both a gentle conical spray, shower head type of a spray, as well as a jet stream. So depending on what you want, you can rotate that nozzle. So usually you can get multiple types of sprays from one head. So it's a percussive spray in that it has impact upon arriving at the skin, and there's a fair bit of pressure that's also involved with that. It has a strong temperature effect because you have both the cold water and the percussion. So when you, for example, do a cold friction rub at the same time you're doing cold water, it intensifies the reaction. So an excellent tonic effect that helps the circulation and has durable, long-lasting effects. So you have 5 basic spray scenarios. You can use the hot, neutral, these are temperatures of water, cold, a revulsive pattern, and then alternate or contrast using hot and cold. So you can spray all different parts of the body. A typical local spray is ascending, as in moving up the body. On the head, the spine or dorsal, so right down the spinal column. Lumbar, because that would be the lower back region. Shoulder, thoracic, which is the torso of the body. Epigastric, and you can see that region outlined in the diagram on the upper right. The quadrants of the abdominal region. Epigastric is above the intestinal tract, above the large intestine, includes the stomach, liver, gallbladder. And the hypogastric is the region below that, which is going to have your bladder, as well as the small intestines, and other reproductive organs will be there as well. The abdominal region is the central core region. You can do sprays to the feet, both on the top side and the plantar or bottom side, perineal, and anal sprays. So you can also utilize spray reflex points. So these are water applied to areas that affect a place that's distant or internal from where you're spraying it. So we'll talk about the affected area and the reflex area that affects it when sprayed with water. So the brain, the skin of the face, so you want a delicate spray on the face to the tender skin. The scalp is going to be tougher, back of the neck, tougher, but it will have positive brain effects. Pharynx and larynx, that can be affected from the skin of the neck. The lungs will have several different lung effects, but the skin of the chest, both the sides and front and back, so kind of a rotating spray on the body can help affect the lung circulation. The heart, skin of the chest area above the heart, so upper chest. The brain, again, and nasal mucosa, the skin of the hands can be beneficially sprayed and affect the brain and nasal mucosa. The liver, you shoot at the lower right chest area with a stream of water. The spleen, the lower left chest area. The skin on the external portion. The kidneys and intestine, you're going to be in the lower dorsal, lumbar spine region. So front, particularly the back, you're going to have closer access to the kidney structures inside the abdominal cavity. Kidneys and ureters, the central abdomen from the navel down to the pubis, which is the area where the pelvis joins together with cartilage. The pelvic organs, so that'd be the uterus, ovaries, bladder, rectum, lower lumbar, and sacral spine, so very lower back and down over the buttocks. The stomach, the epigastric area, can have a reflexive effect there. Intestines, the navel area, and abdominal areas. Other reflex points, the pelvic organs, again, uterus, ovaries, bladder, and rectum, the lower abdominal region, the groin, upper thighs, and breast, all can have effects on the pelvic organs, so a variety of areas. The brain, again, and lungs, the skin of the feet and legs, and affecting the pelvic organs. So it's nice that there are overlapping areas depending on the vigor of the person who's being treated. You may choose one point over another to affect those reflex actions. So when we're using water, we're just going to go over some basic temperatures of various treatments and water temperature conversions here. We have a typical thermometer here in the United States that has both Fahrenheit and Celsius. Some parts of the world have centigrade only, and we should know how to convert between the two different scales so we know what temperature of water we're talking about. We're talking in realms of centigrade, In other parts of the world, in the United States, we focus on Fahrenheit, so converting back and forth is not difficult. We just need to know how to do it. One of these dual thermometers is helpful. So degrees Celsius times 9/5 plus 32 equals the degrees in Fahrenheit. So essentially you would take 37 degrees Celsius, times it by 9, divide by 5, and then add 32, and that results in 98.6. Going the other direction from Fahrenheit to centigrade, Fahrenheit degrees minus 32 times 5 divided by 9 is going to be your centigrade temperature. So that's from 98.6, that's going to translate back to 37 degrees C. The temperature above shows typically right around room temperature. 70 degrees Fahrenheit is about 20 degrees C, and that's a pretty standard operating temperature for scientific experiments, and is a common temperature that's known in science. So we have bath type here, and we're going to be looking at the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit at various temperatures of the different types of baths or water usages. So we've just talked about spray. You can use hot and cold and neutral. So the cold, you're going to be running 50 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, averaging right about the optimal 60. Hot is going to be 104 to 125, so that's going to be above body temperature, so you can have a feeling of hotness. Neutral is 92 to 97, so 98.6 is your normal body temperature. So slightly below that is going to feel slightly cool, but not uncomfortable. A plunge cold, so this isn't ice water, it's just cold water, and 50 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, with an average about 60 degrees is the temperature you use for the plunge cold. So that's like a hand, an arm, a foot. You can do the entire body as well. Immersion, so this is going to be like a bath that you would get into. So cold, and you could actually do like a foot bath or a lower leg bath or a limb bath, but it also applies to total body immersion. So cold is 50 to 70, cool is 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, neutral 92 to 97, again pretty close to body temperature, so not feeling too hot or too cold. Hot 100 to 106, so this is above body temperature, so it's going to feel warm. Very hot up to 115, so those are going to be some hotter temperatures. Shallow bath, these are typically reacted with colder water, so cold 50 to 65, cool 70 to 80, and there's often vigorous rubbing associated with that by the individual who's being treated themselves. We can look at the cold wet sheet pack. The temperature of water you're using for that is about 60 degrees. The hot blanket pack is 130 degrees, so that's going to be again sandwiched in between layers. It's going to be wrung out hot water, but then sandwiched between layers of towels or blankets, so there's no direct contact with the skin to prevent burning, but it is very hot water. A sponge bath, 60 to 75 degrees. Wet hand rubbing, 45 to 75 with an optimum around 60. A cold towel rub, 45 to 75. So it's a cool. Wet sheet rubbing, 60 degrees. Again, that's a cold. These are going to be used for helping to lower temperatures. The foot bath, so you can use for different things. Cold, 45 to 65. And hot, you may want to do a contrast, so cold, hot, cold, hot. Typically, the foot bath is used to raise or create an overall feeling of warmth by the individuals preparatory to doing other types of therapy. So 105 to 120 with 115 medium. A sitz bath, 55 to 65, neutral, 92 to 97, hot. You may do a contrast sitz bath, back and forth. You need two areas to do that in. And they make special tubs for that. That would be easier to get in and out of rather than like a wash basin, but that could be done too, although you would probably need help getting up in and out of that sitz bath situation. So when we're looking at temperatures, we can refer to them by name or by temperature, and the temperature is somewhat subjective by name. So there's a temperature range that we have here that can give you an idea of what that might be in an actual temperature. Very cold, so that's ice water on up, 32 degrees Fahrenheit to 55. Cold, 55 to 70. Cool, 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Tepid, 80 to 92. So that's going to be fairly comfortable. It's going to be like a pool on a hot day. Not cold, not neutral, and not warm. 94 to 97 is going to be just below body temperature. And then you're going to be feeling warm, 92 to 100. Hot, 100 to 104. very hot, 104 above. Now there's some additional types of baths that can be used that have even hotter temperatures. The Turkish bath can be up to 250 degrees. Russian bath, up to 140 degrees. A vapor bath, 140. And fomentations, that's the wrung out towels that have been wrung out of boiling or very hot water, and then sandwiched between other dry towels so that their heat can seep into the chest area, for example, and then alternated with hot and cold. So that'd be a fomentation water temperature. So to assess water temperature, if you didn't have a thermometer available, you just want to be sure to make sure that you test to make sure it's not so hot that it would burn or scald. Then you can plunge the entire arm into the elbow. It's more accurate than using the hand by itself because of the toughness of the skin of the hand. The elbow, some people will just dip their elbow in and test with that, but your forearm is going to be tender in that it's covered with a shirt most of the time, so it's not as tough a skin as the hand is. So if it's hot, it's going to redden the skin. Warm is going to be a nice comfortable heat. Tepid, slowly lower temperature. Cool is going to be the point at which goose flesh, which is showed in the picture here, will first be produced. All those little hairs stand up and end, the little muscles pull together and tight, attempting to reduce the airflow over the surface of the skin and create a feeling of increased warmth for the person who's cold. Cold would be a lower temperature than the goose flesh producing temperature. Very cold would be painfully cold, like a mountain glacial stream or ice water. Could result in numbness fairly shortly. If it's too hot, you're going to only be able to keep your hand in a fraction of a second. So that would be a warning sign to, if you're pulling your hand away quickly, that's too hot. The back of your hand is going to be more tender than the palm of your hand, just due to the callousing that takes place. But overall, the hand is going to be less sensitive to the temperature fluctuations than the rest of the body. And typically, the rest of the body is what's going to have that water applied to it. So general body temperatures. The body temperature T sub B varies by the body region as well as the time of day. So under the tongue is a very common way of taking the temperature, oral. So sublingually under the tongue, 98.6 is the temperature that is considered normal. Axial is under the arm. You can see an axial temperature being taken here by the young man. Under the arm, so at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, it's going to be around 99, so a little higher than what's considered normal for oral. 2 a.m. early in the morning, a little bit lower than what's considered normal, approximately 96.7. A rectal temperature is going to be a half a degree to 3/4 of a degree above the oral temperature, so closer to 100, 99 and 100. The temperature is highest in the evening and lowest about 4 a.m. So your body metabolism slows down. Your thyroid is working there to regulate your metabolism along with your pineal gland and your daily rhythms. So your body metabolism is slowest and begins to rise again as you move towards wakefulness following that point. So the range 97 to 99 is basically normal. It's more easily altered in children because of their lower body mass. And especially infants, their temperature can rise and fall dramatically and quickly. And it's important to keep track of that, especially if a young person or infant is sick. An adult has a slower movement. Their body's less reactive to body temperature changes. When you're taking the oral temp, make sure that you're taking it 30 minutes after you drink a cold or hot beverage, because that beverage can have an influence on the body temperature. So it can raise the oral temperature or lower it if you've had like ice water or a hot drink. So some important temperatures to keep in mind. 93 degrees Fahrenheit is fatal except in cholera. So cholera, there can be some fluctuations in temperature. So that's moving into hypothermia region. 94.0 degrees Fahrenheit, algid collapse. 96, you could have collapse associated with that. So that's not too far down from 98, but it's cool, and you just want to pay attention to that. We are homeotherms, which means our body does a really good job of regulating our temperature and keeping our body temperature the same no matter what the conditions are around us. We may be cold, we may be shivering. That's shimmering thermogenesis, the creation of heat through the muscle movement, and our body does all it can to keep our body within normal range. So 98 is subnormal, but still within the range of normal, as we saw earlier. 98.6 is considered the oral normal temperature. Slight fever at 101, moderate fever at 102, severe fever at 104. So this is where you need to be paying attention and starting to make some Some decisions about treatment. Do some of your wet sheet wraps and baths and sponge downs. 105 is moving into the danger zone. 106 is considered intense. Some medications will do that too, but there's a latency and effect in medication, and then there's the other effects of the medication as well that can be fever reducing. And you may simply not have that available. You may just have water or something cool available to do that with. Even a bag of frozen peas will be helpful because of the coldness. So 107 degrees, it can be fatal and would be fatal if it's maintained, because essentially you're having your proteins of your body, especially the neuronal tissue, breaking down with the intense heat. Just think about something that's being cooked to eat. It gets tenderized, it gets broken down through the cooking process and more digestible. So the heat is actually digesting or releasing and breaking down the proteins. They're changing their conformation or shape, and proteins have to have special shapes and a lock and key kind of mechanism to do their jobs. And if the heat is allowing them to relax their conformation, they cease to function. So there are some types of fevers where they spike and then go down. They're oscillating. So 107 could be just a short intermittent phase, but if it is sustained at that for any length of time, 106, 107, 105, those are all danger temperatures. 104, you're moving that direction, so you want to get on that right away. So God's given us water as a powerful mediator for temperature. It has a high heat capacity. It can absorb a lot of heat before it changes its own temperature. So it's a good first line of defense, a powerful first line of defense. There are other herbs, for example, sticky grass, goosefoot, cleaver is another common name for it, is a febrifuge. So there are some fever-reducing plants that can be used as a tea that are also available that could be used as an adjunct to hydrotherapy.
To be aware of new videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to the Preparing for the Time of Trouble channel. For more free videos and downloadable audio podcasts, as well as handouts, go to www.preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com. Topic categories include recordings of live seminar presentations, country living, sustainable gardening, homestead remedies, how to be self-sufficient when the grid goes down, wild edible and medicinal plants, hydrotherapy, and end-time Bible prophecies. To take advantage of these free resources, go to preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com.